Martijn, welcome.
Thank you, Ylli.
We also have two of our closest colleagues, Chip Usher, Chip, welcome, and Ylber Bajraktari, two of the closest, probably experts that have followed this issue for many, many years on our team. So we will be discussing the events around and in Iran with them shortly. But we will be joined first by another friend of ours, special guest, Joel Rayburn, who served as a Senior Director for the Middle East on the National Security Council staff. And also he served as a Special Envoy for Syria from 2018 to 2021. At the top of the hour at 2 p.m., we will also have Eyal Hulata, our dear friend from Israel, who also served as a former head of the Israeli National Security Council, and he'll be joining us as well live.
All right. Well, thank you, Ylli. Before we dive in, I just wanted to flag for you all that we will be taking questions live. So please send us your take to our Signal handle. That's SESP.250. We're live monitoring your questions, so please let us know your thoughts. That handle, again, on Signal is SESP.250.
Excellent, Martijn. Joel, if you have you online, welcome. Good to have you.
Good to see you.
Joel, let's start with what's your take? Today we had an incredible, press conference first by the Secretary of War and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and then the President also delivered remarks. You have worked these issues for many, many years. What's your take?
Well, putting on my former hat as a military planner and campaign assessor, it looks to me like in terms of the operations, I would have said it's ahead of schedule. To be able to reduce the Iranian regime's command and control capabilities so quickly. And I mean, it's just essentially, it's about 60 hours, I think, into the operations, maybe a little bit less, to have had this much of an effect on the Iranian regime's military capabilities is quite impressive. So I think just in this military phase, I think we can back up from it a moment and say, the military confrontation aspect of this crisis is a foregone conclusion. The outcome is a foregone conclusion. The Iranian regime doesn't have the military capability to defend itself. It's already lost control of its airspace over its own capital. The Israeli Air Force, U.S. Air Force, are not able to fly freely over Tehran and probably just about anywhere else in Iran that they wish to. And so in military terms, that means it's sort of strategically game over. They also haven't been able to really do the kind of damage lashing out at the Israelis or at the Gulf states that I think the Iranian strategy relied upon being able to do for a variety of reasons. So I think it's not a fair military fight. This is not going to be an extended military confrontation where the Iranian regime continues to do damage. They're on the back foot, so it's just a matter of time. They adopted a strategy, though, of decentralizing the command of their missiles and drone strike capability. So you can see there are some probably autonomous commands there that had good stockpiles of those weapons with orders to say, if Tehran goes dark and you don't hear instructions from us anymore, just continue to work down your pre-approved target list. That seems to be happening, but that's not something that's going to happen just infinitely. That's an asset that's going to eventually they're going to run out of the ability to do that. So just in military terms, it's not a contest. Now, politically, it's a big question mark after that. Maybe we could talk about that a little later.
Questions. What do you think the impact on the region has been so far? Has anything surprised you? Has anything not surprised you so far?
Yeah, I think I was surprised by the same thing that the Arab Gulf states were surprised by, which that they got hit in the first round. From the first hours of the confrontation, they were hit in a way that I think they feared but had hoped wouldn't happen. The Iranians clearly adopted a strategy this time of not just focusing on the Israelis and on U.S. assets. They clearly had a strategy from the very first minutes of the war to inflict pain on the Gulf states in particular, even down to the Omanis, which the Omanis effectively had been an extension of Iranian diplomacy, and even they got hit with some sites in a way that I think angered the Gulf states and has has compelled the Gulf states to essentially join in the war on the side of the U.S. and Israel in a way that they had not planned to do. I think they had hoped just to sort of sit it out on the sidelines, being broadly sympathetic to the U.S. side here, but not wanting to expose themselves to a backlash from the Iranians. But the backlash came in the first minutes, so that's been a very strategically significant thing.
Martijn, do you have any
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely. Joel, thank you so much for joining us on such short notice. I'm interested in your thoughts on the succession question, right? So Khamenei is dead. The IRGC command structure is severely degraded. So who's actually making the decisions in Tehran right now? And how is this succession mechanism working when the actual succession mechanism is under bombardment at this very moment?
Yeah, I think it's not going to work very well in the end, because the Iranian regime had a succession plan. They had a survivability plan in place, but they now have the enemy air force flying overhead. So any new leadership that emerges is going to be on the target list again. So it'll have to. I just don't see how it doesn't get to a point where there's not a remnant leadership that has to capitulate and say, okay, wait, President Trump, can we talk about this? Can we talk about those 4 demands you had of us before this whole thing kicked off? I would be really surprised if there aren't already elements inside the regime, whether those are factions or political figures, that are reaching out on back channels along those lines to try to explore, okay, if we agree to the things that we didn't agree to at the negotiating table, can we call timeout on all this?
Chip, you want to ask Joel anything?
Joel, great to see you. Chip Usher here.
Chip, hi.
What is your evaluation of the remaining inventories of rockets and missiles that Iran may still have? I know precise figures are elusive to obtain, but in particular, how do you rate their ability to continue to threaten oil deliveries through the Strait of Hormuz?
Overall, so medium-range ballistic missiles, the ones that can range Israel, it seems like the Israelis are really concentrating on trading that. And I saw the statement, the estimate from the Israeli chief of staff that they believed they'd gotten those to a level under 200. It's so, I mean, that's something that's not going to last very long. They won't be able to really extend the pain. And as you know, Chip, it doesn't matter how many missiles you have; it's how many missile launchers you have, and that's a wasting asset. And it's under they're being hunted. The short-range ballistic missile capabilities and the anti-ship cruise missile capabilities; those are the ones that are more dangerous, both for firing across the Gulf and firing at shipping in the Gulf. Those it's yet unclear. We didn't know for sure how many launchers, short-range launchers they had, because those weren't used in the June confrontation because they can't range Israel. The estimates that open source estimates have always put that at around 100. So those will be attrited over time as well, but they can do a lot of damage because the shorter range missiles get to the target more quickly and are harder to intercept. So it remains a threat. I think the IRGC Navy seems like, as the president said in his remarks earlier, that's a focus. Taking out the IRGC Navy is now a focus of the campaign. I would not expect they would be able to do much then with their surface vessels and their submarines. But the anti-ship cruise missiles and the ability to affect shipping there, that's unclear. So if I were the coalition military target planners right now, that's what I would be looking at, is trying to neutralize that anti-ship cruise missile capability. But if we zoom back from the situation, I don't think the trend line is working in the direction of the Iranians having the ability to disrupt the Persian Gulf and shut down the Strait of Hormuz for a really extended period of time. Especially since they now over their cities, they don't have any effective air defense. So it's just the air forces here and the maritime forces can essentially attack those targets at their leisure, without the Iranians having much of an ability to fight back.
Ylber, maybe last question from you for Joel.
Yeah, Joel, great to see you. Thank you so much for your insights. Obviously, you've spent a tremendous amount of time professionally as a military and as a diplomat in this region. What does this mean for the region? What does Iran that's crippled militarily mean for the region? And then maybe if you can take a step back and put this in a broader strategic context, what does a weakened Iran mean for sort of the axis of disruptors? And particularly this action being in the aftermath of the action in Venezuela.
Yeah, I think it's huge on both counts. It's huge in the region. It's huge geopolitically. In the region, the Iranian regime has exerted very significant political influence in the Arab world in particular because of the military strength of its proxies on the ground in the Levant, in Yemen, in Iraq. And while they still have, for the time being, reach into Iraq, it seems pretty clear they no longer have Lebanon. Syria is gone, was already gone for them. The Palestinian territory is already gone for them. Yemen, the Houthis seem to not want to have anything to do with this conflict. So the deep reach of the axis of resistance seems to really have been ended. And they can, as I say, they can reach into Iraq, but they can only do that locally. Their proxies in Iraq don't have a regional reach. And then if we zoom further out from it, an Iranian regime that no longer is able to sustain the kind of aggressive, destabilizing foreign policy that it's been doing, now it begins to be neutralized as a key member of that alliance of China, Russia, Iran, or the CRINCS coalition, which North Korea, Venezuela, and so on. So it seems like that coalition, that strategic coalition, is really reduced by several now, with the loss of Assad and Venezuela, and now the Iranian regime. It makes it, and that'll have a material impact on Russia, for example. The Iranian regime has been the supplier of drones and missiles to the war effort in Ukraine for the Russians. It's one of the main energy suppliers to Xi Jinping's China. So it's a real setback. If the Iranian regime now either is neutralized as a member of that alliance, or if there's some pending political arrangement where it flips and becomes more malleable to the United States and our allies, that's a real strategic setback, I think, for that adversarial alliance, the axis of revisionists.
Joel, thank you so much for the short notice to join us. As always, incredible insights. So thank you again, and we'll sure to call you back on our show to continue this conversation, since I'm sure this will continue for many, many weeks to come.
Okay. Good to be with you.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, gentlemen, before we continue with our show, I want to play the video from today's president's remarks, I think, about Iran, and then we can continue the conversation.